Good morning, everyone. Okay, let's do first things first. Number one, yes, I made the bread. Yes, I know it's too big. Yes, I know I used too much water, not enough oil. Yes, it won't break, will it, Mindy? But guess what? You're stuck with it when we use up all the stuff I made there. And that's all there is to it. So next week, don't be playing around. Actually, it's kind of great for us to be here today, for us to be able to study God's Word. And let me tell you something, we're going to, I'm on tonight. We're going to be talking about a very interesting subject called fallen angels. And what we have to do is remember to not come at this with a concept and idea of what you know, but rather we'll come at this with the concepts and ideas that God provides. Because this is important for us to be able to understand any subject out there. I don't care what the subject matter may be. God covers every single thing that you ever wanted to know in the Bible. And there are things that you may want to know about heaven. He still covers most of that, but let me tell you something. He tells us in Deuteronomy 29:29. I like it when verses rhyme with that. That the things He's told you, you're responsible for. And the things He hadn't told you, you're not responsible for. It's just like going on a trip and when you're a little kid and in the back seat, where are we going? And then, are we there yet? Those things. But you're not responsible to know how much gas it's going to take, how much money's in the bank, whether or not you'll be able to get there, where are you going, or any of that stuff. What we do know is what God has given us, and He has given us for us to be able to know and to be able to give us the power and the strength to be able to be Christians and meaning warriors for God. So let's start. First of all, the first thing we have to do is just simply discuss angels. And because we have to start there, we have to look at both kinds of angels. Good angels and fallen angels. And so what we're going to see is, at first, God created them. Now let's wait, before we do that, let's read Job chapter 38, verses 6 through 7. Job, which is the book before Psalms, chapter 38, verses 6 through 7. You ready? God's talking to Job. He's sick and tired of Job complaining. He spent 30 chapters complaining. And God is saying, who are you to complain to me about what I did? And He says, on what were its footings, as the earth, set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Well, it's an interesting thought. The angels shouting for joy. Now let's turn to Matthew 25 and verse 41 and see what is said there. Now, in light of this will help you know. Verse 41. Then He will say to those on the left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into an eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Interesting. Now we're talking about two different kinds of angels. Now we know that the angels were created before the physical realm because of what Job said, that the angels were excited about Him creating the earth because they knew that there was going to be an outcome, and the outcome is that God would be separated from Satan forevermore. And us along with it. That should be our excitement. We're never going to have to deal with pain, suffering, death, sickness, depression, anxiety ever again. We're going to be happy and enjoy ourselves the rest of our eternal life. That ought to get you on board, right? Now, so if the angels who were excited about it were in heaven, and the angels who were punished and are going to go to hell with Satan, we get two different kinds of angels, don't we? We've got to look and see what we're talking about. Now let's take a look. Now we've got to get this into our minds. And this is really, really, really hard, because these are physical pictures talking about a spiritual thing. I had to search like crazy, because the world is full of lies about these things. But let's talk about the spiritual realm. What is in the spiritual realm? Well, we know that there's God, right? And we also know there's Satan. Those two we know are in the spiritual realm. And we know that they are entities, they're diametrically opposed. Do you understand what this word means? That means they're this far apart and they can never get together. Simple as that. They're diametrically opposed. One, his actions are good. His ability is love, produce, to provide, and to make prosperity. This one, his job is to hate, to do evil, to bring pain, suffering, and destruction upon you. They are desperately different. Can you see that? And then into this, God created the angels, and we know that He created them before the world began, as the good angels were excited about it. And so the angels were created and judged before. However, the judgment day has not come. What's the judgment day? Why is that different from judgment? Because when you sin, you're judged. But then there's a sentencing time in which there's be the separation of good from evil for a moment. This is important to understand. What else is inside the spiritual realm? Hey, let's take a look. It's the world. The physical realm is inside the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is not inside the physical realm. It's the other way. God was in the spiritual realm, and He created the physical world. Well, you know what else is in there then? People are in there. And what are people? They are creatures that are made different than any other creature ever created in all of creation. You notice the words I'm using, created. That's all about things that were created in the physical realm. Because they're uniquely different in the fact that they are both in the physical realm and in the spiritual realm. You see, they're both, look, body, which will go away someday, and spirit, which will never go away. Now, all of this is in the spiritual realm. And it's all being watched by the spiritual beings. All the good, all of God, all of Satan, all of the angels. Now look, we don't know what else there is in Satan's realm. We do know that in God's realm, He told us there's also seraphim and cherubim. But they're not like the angels. They didn't have a choice. They were created by God to do a certain act, a certain thing. And because of that, He has them doing this particular thing. But people, as well as angels, are created to be doing something either for God or for themselves. They're actively choosing who they want to follow, God or Satan, just as the angels did. And because of that, they have a purpose, a reason. This is about the best description of an angel I could get. How you like that? It's like an upside down hat, doesn't it? But anyway, or a fallen angel. How about that one? Kind of dark, same thing, but kind of dark. Because we don't know what angels look like. We're not told. We know what they look like when they appear to people. They always appear as a man. And we know that God tells us we can entertain angels unaware. So they're going to appear just like people. They're not going to appear like something weird. They're not going to glow or something like that, like we have in all our pictures. But we're also told the cherubim and the seraphim have wings. We're not told angels have wings. And yet we always depict it like that. You see one back there in the back, a little baby boy or whatever, back there with a wing. That's okay, I understand that. That's what the world thinks. But they will always show up as men in the physical realm. We had that show, Touched by an Angel, and they always use women in there. Women are never described as being angels, are never described as being women in the Bible. Always men. Why? Because God always has given the leadership role to men, as far as the spiritual realm is concerned. And so, here's what we got, here's what we know are in the spiritual realm. There's us and our souls. There's God and Satan, and angels, both good angels and fallen angels. Fallen angels because they fell from the glory of God. And that's real simple. It's not easy. Because you see, here's the issue. The angels had the opportunity to choose God or Satan. Guess what? So do you. Each of us have the opportunity to choose between God as our master or Satan as our master. But guess what? You don't have a third choice. You cannot come up with an idea that is on your own. All thoughts and ideas and purposes and dreams and hopes are either from God or from Satan. You sift through them, but they have been introduced to you. You have been exposed to them. And here's the problem. In these United States, we're exposed to good and evil all the time. We understand we have a God. We understand it from our laws. But you know what? There are countries out there that can't fathom that, because their laws never bring God into question. Europe's in big trouble because godless people have taken over. They already had godless people in the fact that they were humanists. And now they've got Islam taking over. And I'll tell you what, they're in trouble because they've got more. Did you know I believe Sweden has more people in there that are not from the Swedish birth than they did others. So do Germany too. They've got some real big problems. See, if we have people here in the United States, you know what? They're under our laws. And our laws always point to God. What's our motto? In God we trust. So it's very good that we have that opportunity. You have that opportunity too. You don't have the opportunity to choose anything but either God or Satan, and the angels had the same choice. That's why we were created a little lower than the angels. We just can't see the spiritual realm, but they could see God, and still some of them chose to go to Satan. Now, the last point here is those who left the glory of God fell. They fell from God's grace, God's love, God's glory, all that sort of stuff. And they fell to Satan. So they are people who fell from glory. Who are they? They're called fallen angels. Now look, do we have a picture of them? No. Can we have a picture of them? We're going to have a hard time with that. Since we're lower than the angels and we can't see God. or sin. So we'd have a tough time seeing angels. The only way we can see angels, according to the Bible, is that they appear as humans. That's very important for us to understand. And very important for us to be able to grasp and to hang on to. All right, let's take a look at our next point here about fallen angels. Let's read Jude. And Jude only has one chapter, but, you know, if you say Jude 6, people go, huh? There's 6 chapters in Jude? No. There's only one. Jude's right before Revelation. It's only, in my book, a page long. In those of you who have the hard of hearing books, it may be 2 or 3 pages. Big print, you know, hard of hearing. Okay, so here we are. Verse 6 and 7. And the angels who did not keep their position of authority, but abandoned their own home, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on that great day. In a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding towns gave themselves up to sexual immorality. They served as an example of those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire. Now, what is he saying here? Fallen angels are locked in darkness and bound with chains. Now, these are physical words to describe to you a spiritual condition. So God does this. He's giving you word pictures for you to be able to see into the spiritual realm. So let's take a look. Let's pretend this is it. And we can see that inside that room that they are bound with everlasting chains. That means chains that won't change, and they won't change after judgment either, because they're bound in the way in which they decided they would be. You see how dark it is in there? They're bound in darkness. They're chained. Now this is an example of what God says. They have no hope. They have nothing else. They're kept in darkness and bound, meaning they are locked in the situation that they have chosen. Do you understand that? That's important. Because he's talking about us. He's showing us the example. He's telling us it's that way. You know why they're locked in darkness? They don't have the light. Amen. God says he is the light. Meaning, if you're not with God, you're in darkness. Then this is a physical word picture about a spiritual condition. If you're in the world here, and you're walking around, you're eating ice cream, and you're going to pizza and whatever it is you do, and you're not with God, you're lost. Simple as that. Whether people like to hear it or not, it's that simple. Because they don't have the light in them, they are full of darkness. And so, he says, these angels are no longer, see, because they're bound, no longer have a choice. They're locked in their position. And once we die, so are we. We're locked in our choice. In fact, what it says here about those fallen angels is that they are awaiting judgment day. That's the sentencing. They were already guilty when they sinned and decided to go. Sin simply means went against God's law. And decided to go with Satan. And when they did that, they were locked in that position, and later will be sent away from God forevermore at Judgment Day. That's the end of the world. Do you understand the enormity of this world, the purpose of it, the grandness of us living here, of us being people that God has created for the purpose of being with Him. You can choose not to, or you can choose to, but we were created for the purpose of being a warrior for God or a warrior for Satan. That's it. And at the end of our time, we also will be locked in awaiting sentencing. Here's the question. Where are you going to be locked? In the light, like the good angels, excited about what's going on? Or in the darkness, like the fallen angels? In fear of what's going on? So here's what we know. There's going to be a judgment day. Now, I don't like two things about this picture. I like the fact that it has a judge, kind of, how the judges always have a high podium so they can look down on you. But I don't like this because it has wings, and there just isn't any description of an angel having wings. Cherubim, seraphim, yes, those are not angels. And it also has the old law, which we're not under here. We're under the law of Christ. So here we are. You can tell this is a common, normal, a modern day man because he's wearing a suit. Here we are, and we're going to stand before judgment under the law of Christ. Or is he covered with the blood, or is he not? That's it. If he's not covered with the blood of Christ, which he received in baptism, he's not in. In fact, here's another picture. It kind of gives you an idea of what it may. These are just pictures, and they can't really depict the reality of it. But what I like about this is there's a right hand and a left hand. Okay? There's a right side where he says, "Welcome home, my good and faithful servant," and a left side where they're sent off into torment and torture. You see all these, looks like smoke from a burning fire. Which side do you think the fallen angels are on? Right or the left? Right over there. They're locked, waiting for Judgment Day. And in Judgment Day, they will be there with all the people who chose not to be with God. Let me tell you something. If you think this is a small church, you're right. If you think right now, put yourself outside these walls with your mind and look around and look at all the people who refuse to be here. Hell's going to be a full place. And it's not going to be because God was angry at them or because he's just a meanie, but because they decided and chose to be there, just as you decided and chose to be with God. When we stand before the purity of God, we will not be able to hold our heads up, even if we are Christians. You know what John did when he saw Christ? He fell on his face as if he was dead. So we see the purity of him. Do you think we're going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm a good guy, take me in"? No, we're going to be thinking about all the sins, and he's going to say, "Welcome home, my good and faithful servant," because we have done what he commanded. It is so important to understand. And let me tell you something. There are people out there that you love, that you tried to help, that you've given everything you could to them. They made their own choice. Even though it hurt you because you're the same blood, you love them, or whatever. They're either of the blood of Christ or they're not. And you can't change that. But you can save yourself and as many as you can. By bringing them, helping them to learn these simple little things. And here's the key. The Bible's right. I'm not. You're not. Nobody is. You can't trust me. Trust the Bible. If I'm not speaking from the Bible, don't trust me. Simple as that. Because I'm just a selfish man like you're a selfish person. That's just the way we are. So what do we know? The fallen angels cannot be used by God. Why? They're locked, they're bound. What can he use then? He can only use those who are good. Those he could use to be able to come and proclaim the word to people or help people. I remember a time, I'm going to tell you this story. So sit back, get your cup of coffee. But anyway, years ago I was riding down the road, had a flat on my trailer. This is back when I always bought used tires. Well, since I bought new tires, I rarely hang flats. But anyway, I'm going down the road. This is out in the middle of nowhere in South Dallas. And there's a prison off in the distance. But there isn't anything out there. There's not a house. There's nothing out there. All of a sudden, these two guys stopped. They were in a plumbing truck. You get that? Plumbing truck. And they said to me, you're in a bad area. You need to get out of here. I said, well, I got a problem here. You know, I've got to unload my car to find the jack. And the trailer's full. I have to unload it to pick up the trailer. He said, no, we'll take care of that. But you're in a bad place. And they went back to the truck. They all threw on the truck. And there wasn't anything in there, but they pulled out a floor jack and a four-way, which is that you used to take off the nuts back then. You didn't have anything. No. And so they came over and changed my flat, and the other one wasn't that good either. And they said, listen, in 4 miles down that way, there is a tire place. You need to go. I said, okay. How good can I pay? No. They keep looking around like that, but scaring the daylights out of me. You need to get out of this place. Put their stuff back in the car, close the door. I went on my way. Didn't pay attention to where they were. 4 miles down the road, there's a tire company. It was for trucks, not for cars. They had 2 tires. It's exactly what I needed for that trailer. Now, are they angels? I have no idea. Because you see, angels look just like guys. I don't know. All I know is they didn't have anything in that truck but what I needed. And they knew where there were tires that I needed. What I'm saying is, don't pretend that angels shine, have wings and stuff like that. Go by what God says. Trust God to give you the truth. So what do we know? Fallen angels can't be used. But good angels can, because they're locked in light. See that? If the others are locked in darkness, guess that they're locked in light. They're not going to be able to change. So God can afford to send them down knowing they're going to do what is right. You are hopefully locked in your choices. And God can send you. These are powerful things to think about. Light is always greater than darkness. God is always going to be over Satan. Because he created this world and he created truth. Lies or truth with something added or taken away. And it's dark. There's no hope or future in darkness. You're just wandering around and hurting yourself. Right now, tonight, we're going to talk about an equally interesting subject. We're going to talk about ghosts. And interesting, this guy had, that they have flies around this ghost. See the flies?
Bats.
Huh?
Bats.
No, those are flies. You know how I know? Because he's dead. And dead men always stink. All right, here we go. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. I don't care because it's not from God, all right? We'll talk about what is from God tonight about ghosts. All right, and don't forget, too, that we are on this side of a time period in the world where ghosts were a big market, like Edgar Allan Poe and Charles Dickens and so on and so forth, who really pushed all that forward. All right, let's take a look now at, where am I? 2 Peter. 2 Peter, and chapter 2, verse 4. Now, our point is that this cannot be, a fallen angel cannot be Satan. And you know the world says it is. Let's take a look at 2 Peter, chapter 2, verse 4, which is on the other page. For God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, which is really Tartarus or Hades, the waiting place, putting them in gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment. Did you understand what he said? We don't have to go into the rest of it. Let's look at what he said. He said that they were locked in gloomy dungeons. He said earlier, Jesus told us they're locked in darkness and chains. So how can one get out? Or others even. Some people say, well, that's Lucifer. You can go over to Isaiah chapter 14, and it talks about Lucifer. Let's take a look. Chapter 14, which is important because our chapters are divided into chapters, but they're not. Sometimes you lose the thought process. Okay. Where it says, verse, what was it? 12 through 17. Look at 12. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star! And some of the, not many, but some of the translations have the word Lucifer. And it is a word, not a name, which means, O morning star. Son of dawn, you have been cast down to earth, you who have laid low nations. And it goes on. Now, here's a question. Who is he talking about there? If he's not talking about Satan, who is he talking about? And this is our idea of Satan, by the way. Very buff, by the way. But that is not true. In fact, it isn't even close to true. And the word Lucifer doesn't even mean Satan. That stuff, toss it out. It's a lie, not according to the Bible. Who's he talking to? Look in verse 4, same chapter. You will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. Who's the king of Babylon? That's Nebuchadnezzar, which I did not make you spell, by the way. It's a hard one to spell. He's talking about this guy. Well, wait a minute. It says he fell from... It means he fell. What's that all about? You don't remember the story about Nebuchadnezzar? He sat there and said, you see this land? It's all great because I did it. And God said, you didn't do that. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn you into an animal. And I'm going to keep it while you're an animal. And then when you come back to your senses, I'll give it back to you and show you it wasn't you, it was me. So he turned him into an animal, and he grew hair like feathers and ate grass all day. Can you imagine a dignitary coming from another country and saying, excuse me? And the entourage, whoever the slave is, or whoever came, excuse me, but my king is here to see the king of Babylon. I said, all right, you see that pin out there? That's where he is, right there. And they go out there and look, Harry's eating grass. Hair like feathers. What is this? And God did that to humble him so he wouldn't lose him. And the greatest nation ever on earth. Greatest city ever on earth. And God has used that concept and idea when he talks about how nations are horrible because of the sin they do. He calls them Babylon. That's Nebuchadnezzar. It's not talking about Satan at all. In fact, he's not talking about it because they're different. Fallen angels are different. And guess what? Fallen angels cannot be intimate with women. You know how people say, oh, but the sons of God met with the daughters of women and they produced offspring. That must have been demons or Satan or whatever. Oh, we got so many movies about Satan's spawn, about people having children born from someone who is evil, must be a fallen angel or whatever. Oh, maybe the Nephilim, the giants, came from the fallen. You ever heard these stories? Well, guess what God says in Matthew 22, verse 30? He says, there is no giving in marriage, which is the only place you can have sex, according to God, in the spiritual realm. They are just like the angels. What? You mean they're not male and female? No. God said he created people as male and female to propagate. They don't need to propagate. Why would a fallen angel propagate more fallen angels into hell? The only place God created for propagation was here. They can't be intimate with women. There is no gender or sex in the spiritual realm. In fact, he tells you, when you die, you know, I asked him, well, what about this woman's been married 6 times? Whose husband is going to be her husband hereafter? He said, don't worry about that. There's no marriage given marriage. Yeah. So in reality, your soul is neither male nor female. Your soul is either God's or Satan's. That's it. So you know that old story about that? I mean, we got all kinds of movies about that. Even the movie of Moses, Noah, with some guy in it, and they had rock people in there that were supposed to be fallen angels. I mean, how did they get there? Unbelievable. So here's what he says in this verse. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. There's no way they can reproduce. Fear not, people. I don't care what that guy acts like, women. He's not a fallen angel. And we see no origin of either God or Satan in Scripture. There's no origin for Satan. We have no clue of his beginning. He just shows up and acts in Genesis 3. And there's no beginning for God. Nobody created him. He exists. What we do know is there's going to be a judgment in which God and Satan will be separated forevermore. So here's the key. Your decision determines your eternal destiny. Make your decision well. Make sure you've been baptized for removal of sins for the purpose of receiving the blood of Christ on you and the gift of the Holy Spirit, so that when you're resurrected out of that water, you are a child of God. And then live faithfully until you are dead. Because, folks, when you die, you are locked in your position. In either darkness or in light. There's no origin for either God or Satan in Scripture. Anywhere. All we have is they are. Now that's about fallen angels. Now doesn't it give you clarity to know? Doesn't it take away some of the ideas, concepts, and worries that you may have? And God is for you. That's why He gave you the Bible. He's not against you. He's not laughing when you can't understand. He's giving you every bit of information you need. Be wise. Follow Him. Do what is right. Learn His knowledge. Understand it so you can act wisely. That's the key. If you're not right with God, now's the time. Do not spare. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not even guaranteed this evening. Wherever your need is, you can come forward as we stand and sing together.